So, Sweater Man.
Excuse me.
Let's review this. Alright. Since you are our local critic...
Thank you. I like that title, Local Critic. It has a nice ring to it, don't you think?
You're a douchebag.
Don't
Alright.
say that into the microphone. Good lord. Children are watching.
You'd enjoy that, wouldn't you?
Shut up and continue.
Alright. Alright, since you are the critic and I am the good guy always let the other person go first.
Well, how courteous of you.
Thank you.
Alright, I guess, my first main point about, the cube is that it lacked variety. The traps were continuous. There were like 4 basic traps. And they just repeated. And eventually you just knew how to get by them. In fact, they weren't all that hard to get by at all. So it just got to the point where after 1 or 2 times it was just kind of boring. Like the traps, it were as if they weren't even there. They were just an obstruction. And that's it.
I suppose valid point, but some of those traps I do have to consider a little bit of a positive. I would have to say that I seem to recall a few events where you and I fell for those traps a couple times.
Agreed.
So,
mostly out of my own stupidity, but it wasn't like they were except for the mob traps were just a touch on the dangerous side, especially just by the sheer number of mobs that were there. But the lava traps and the water traps, that there was that one lava trap that took us a while to figure out how to get around, but once we realized how simple it was, it just, nothing really got in our way.
I do seem to recall, though, one particular lava trap that you, fell in.
Well, yes, I tried to, jump a short... Anyway.
Alright.
You may have a solid point that they, while monotonous and continuous, they do pose a threat.
Alright. Seems that we can at least agree on that a little bit. Alright.
A little bit.
What about point number 2 for you?
Point number 2, the traps were obvious. They were smack dab right in front of me, right in my face. It was like they didn't even try. There were no pressure plates, there was no dispenser, there was no lava falling from the ceiling, there was none of that. It was just open pitfalls into nothingness, or open pitfalls into water which led into nothingness, or there were open pitfalls into lava. And then there were mobs. But other than that, it just didn't... It a little frustrated me because it took away the jumping out of your pants feeling you get when you just are terrified at something, You're really surprised by something stabbing you in the back or whatever. And this map lacked that, and I was disappointed.
I suppose I can see that a little bit. Now, moving on to, I suppose, my second point. Now, with this being based on the Cube series, one feature that I was fairly impressed by was, while it didn't carry into a 3-dimensional plane, the 2-dimensional plane kept fairly accurate to the movies, and I liked how the parameter rooms ended with a void, just as if you would see on the outside of the cube from the movies. In Cube Zero, you can actually see outside of the whole structure. It is just nothingness. I felt that kept fairly true to the movies, and I was impressed by that detail, especially with them having you set your render distance to short. That was good on their part. That was one feature that I did admire.
I didn't really understand why we had to set our render distance to short. Whenever we looked down, it was into the void. There was nothing there to see. I felt that was completely unnecessary, actually.
Indeed. Alright, what about your next point?
Except to get rid of minimal lag. But um, my next point is that there was the size of the map is gigantic, and while that is an upside, it is also a downside considering they gave us nothing. We had nothing. We had no food, no armor, no weapons. Like, I would have been content with like leather pants and the stone sword, for heaven's sake, and like 5 steak. That it would have made me happy. I would have had something. But when you're going up against all these mobs, you don't have anything to defend yourself with, it ceases to be a challenge room, and just it's like a room that you can't go into.
Hmm.
It's like you walk into the room, oh look, 15 mobs. I can't do anything. I'm going to have to go back and try and get around it, you know? Instead of giving us the opportunity to actually try and get through it, they said this is might as well just put a brick wall in your face. And also the gameplay, the hours of gameplay that this map potentially contains. Well, we, from sheer dumb luck and your knowledge of the movie, we were managed to find the exit. I could see someone wandering these halls if they were dedicated and they were passionate and obsessed with finding the exit. I can see them wandering those halls for hours and hours and hours, like 8 hours, just long. And if you lived long enough, you would starve to death.
I can
It,
I can see that point, but realistically, it is designed after a prison in which you are meant to die. Realistically, the men above are not going to hand you a full course meal.
well, no, but they can. But this is like you said. This is supposed to be entertainment to them, correct? What is entertaining about watching someone starve to death? It is more entertaining to watch them die to violent, horrible, fiery means.
I can
Just
see
watching
that.
them kind of curl up and pass out and then die in their sleep is not very entertaining. Maybe once, just because they suffered great pain. If you're a sociopath or something, I don't know. But I think the more it would be more entertaining if they were to give us random things just to see what we did with them. It would open up more options. You know.
Okay. I suppose I can see that. One thing that I do have to give as a positive, though, is the fact that this map had an unbelievable 520 rooms. That has the potential for some incredibly diverse gameplay. If you want to be strategic, you could actually plot out your movements and eventually find that exit just by preventing backtracking for you. Or you could extend your gameplay by doing it more or so what we did throughout most of the map and explore randomly and be focused more on going through things blindly to give that to encourage that sense of panic. There's a lot of potential for an incredible diversity of gameplay and
Mm-hmm.
a massive, massive window of the time that you can put into this. That I have to view
That
as a
is true.
positive.
That is true. I have to agree with you there. It. I have to look at it and I have to admire and I have to have a sick feeling of somewhat disgust just a little bit with the person who created this map. Because I mean, I got a good look on the outside of it, and I don't see how someone could possibly make themselves do that. I give him kudos. That was amazing. It was 520 rooms that look exactly the same. It must have been boring as hell to create this map.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, kudos, congratulations. Make it interesting next time.
Alright. Now, what about your next move?
Um,
What do you have to say?
my I'm gonna have to point out the obvious one, which unfortunately our viewers, well, fortunately, they did not get to see because we edited it out. We spawned not where we were supposed to spawn, and apparently this is very common. But they we spawned on top of the giant bedrock ceiling that encases this entire map, and we had no idea where the frick we were. And it took us 15 minutes to find the actual spawn point. And I can see this as a major deterrent to many people. You know, if you spawn somewhere and it's not completely obvious what you're supposed to be doing, and you take a look around and nothing makes sense, then I think most people are just going to close the map and go find another one. You know, it'd be... Oh dear,
Hey now.
that's ominous. Thunderstorm during review, lovely. And I just think that, and apparently it's hugely common. Many people experience this. Many people that no one knows how to fix it. It's just a problem with the programming of the actual map, and it's huge oversight. And it's probably the biggest problem that I have with this map. You know, if I had been playing by myself, and if I hadn't wanted to film it, then I would have just skipped it over. I would have been, alright, we're done with this. This, I have no promise that this is going to be any good, so I'm not going to fight for 20 minutes just to start it. That's just not happening.
Okay, I can see that one. Alright, now, my next positive point to this map is, obviously, you know, it was just you and I playing this map. However, the fact that we did play it multiplayer, and it is a map that is designed for both single player and multiplayer. I feel the fact that we did play it multiplayer enhanced the quality of the map. I felt like we were feeding off of each other's emotions a bit more, and therefore improving our soul experience. The more one of us got, you know, lost, it would carry over to the other player and essentially magnify. It really helped develop that emotional response that this map was intended to drive.
I agree. I think that one of the main purposes of this map was not to challenge the player physically, but more on a mental and an emotional state. It's quite distressing actually how well it worked. It might not have shown as much, but that was a very stressful map to play. I have to admit, with the rooms that were always the same, not knowing where you were, not knowing where you were headed, not knowing where you had been, or even if you were just going in small circles, that drove me crazy.
Agreed.
It did. I hated that, and I loved it at the same time. But, so, the multiplayer really did enhance the mental quality. I have to agree with that.
Yep. Alright, now, from what I understand, we both have one more point to get across, so what is your last point to get across?
My last point, isn't too major, as in it was an optional, not really, I suppose it wasn't optional, but if you were like us and you just wanted to ignore the rule, then it was very easy to do so. But one of the rules was that you were to play on hardcore mode. I think that making this a rule just really took away from the experience. I can understand there are some gamers out there, and there are several video games that are out there like this, like FTL. If you've ever played that, Faster Than Light, anybody out there is playing it, once you die, it's over. There's no saves points, there's nothing. You actually have to go back to the beginning and start completely over. Now, in Minecraft, it's a little bit different with hardcore mode that I think would have very deterred from actually doing this. I think if someone... This map is so infuriating, basically, that if someone were to die and then get kicked from the server because it's on hardcore mode, and then he'd have to restart everything and do it all over again, I think that just would have been the straw that broke the camel's back. I think most people just would have rage quitted right there. Especially if they had gotten pretty far, you know, or if they had a general idea where they were, you know, or just they had made progress.
Yeah, I could definitely see that one.
I think it would have been the last straw.
That's a fair enough point, I suppose. I suppose my last point that I would like to get out there, This, in my opinion, was probably the best quality of the map. It really, with one, its repetitive nature, the true size of the map, everything that the map did well, it did on a grand scale. When we were going through all of the rooms, we truly felt a sense of panic. We truly felt like we were trapped. And, you know, just that last moment where, you know, ironically, when the music for the sun coming up started playing, just as the tail end of that music, you know, started to, you know, slow down, right there, we find the exit, and we see grass, we see trees, we see daylight. It was a true sense of freedom, like we had just gone through hell and come back better.
I have to agree.
That was probably, as far as Minecraft goes, that was a stunning emotional experience. You know, that was done very well, especially considering it is Minecraft, a typically fairly mellow tone emotional game. And that part I was thrilled about because I love emotional journeys, and that was definitely a good one.
I have just on that point, of all the things that I've said that are bad about this map, that point really does kind of save it. You know, just despite all of the faults, and there were lots of faults that this map had, I still experienced that emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
As
Absolutely.
an immersive gamer, that's what I do, and the fact that I could still pull an emotional experience out of this train wreck of an adventure map. No offense, I have to applaud it because it still managed to do what it originally set out to do.
Absolutely. All right. So, with that being said, let's go to the review boards. Now, the way me and the Critic over there are going to be basing our reviews for this map and further maps is we are going to take each of our key points and we are going to rate them, you know, accordingly, so they could potentially add up to 10 out of 10. And we're going to take those key points and basically rate it out of a 2-point system, based on how many points we have. On the average, it's going to be 5, so they're each going to be worth about 2 points. And basically rate the importance of those key points, you know, whether they be 0, 1, or 2. In my case, 2 being the best, and your case, 2 being the worst. And we're going to take those scores, I'm going to add them up from 0, and I'm going to add from that point, and Sweaterman here is going to start at 10 and deduct from that point. So, shall we get on to the boards?
Indeed. You first.
Alright. So, as far as the general outlay of the map, and especially that small but very accurate detail of nothingness being outside of the cube, I'm going to give it one out of 2. Reason being 1 is because I did like that detail of it basically just being void surrounding the whole thing, but it lacked that third dimension that the movies do have. So I'm going to give about a half score on that. As far as the traps go, they were effective on us the first time around. As you saw from the recording, we each died about 4 or 5 times. I lost track. And we died pretty legitimately. Yeah, there were a couple of just bad luck moments, but we did die pretty legitimately, so that does prove that the hazards or traps or whatever you want to call them were effective the first time around, because they did catch us off guard before we learned the pattern. So I'm going to give that one another 1 out of 2. The whole length of the gameplay based on how many rooms there are, that was awesome. 520 rooms, just about infinite pathways, and a completely diverse amount of hours that you can put into this map. That one I'm gonna give it 2 out of 2. Spectacular job there. Good multiplayer map. Like I said, the multiplayer aspect enhances the emotional pull of this map. So I would definitely, if I was playing this single player, I would probably rate it out of 1 out of 2. Being the fact that I played this map multiplayer and we were able to feed off of each other's emotions, I'll give it a 2 out of 2 there. And for my final point, the true sense of madness, being lost, feeling trapped, and then that final release at the end, that true sense of freedom, it was, for such a simple map, for such a simple game, it was a huge emotional response. Once again, I'll give it a 2 out of 2. So you figure my scores are 1, 1, 2, 2, 2. That adds up to an 8 out of 10. And that's my positive review.
Now for my negative review. Oh joy, let's start. Alright, for the fact that it lacked variety. Not only the rooms lacked variety, but the traps lacked variety. Just the pattern. There was a definite pattern at points that was easy to spot. And that is a huge thing for me. I can't, for a puzzle map, I shouldn't be able to predict what's going to happen. You know? That shouldn't be a thing. And for that, I'm going to have to give this a -2. For the fact that the traps were... What?
Just, hold on 1 second. That goddamn amp bag. Stop raining, you assholes! Okay.
Did you feel the need to...
I did.
To yell at the world?
I did.
Oh look, it listened. It actually stopped raining.
See? That's what you get for being a positive guy.
Well, you just yelled at it. That's not very positive. I'm sorry. It's okay, it's okay. We all have our moments. I actually complimented someone yesterday. And then I berated myself for a couple months afterward. Anyway. For the fact that the traps were obvious, this is another huge thing. It goes back to the prediction thing. For a map that's based on a movie that is a suspension movie, it's all about... No, I don't think suspension. Suspension, sorry. Suspense movie. There was a suspense in the fact that we were in a maze. And that we couldn't find our way out. But other than that, there wasn't much suspense. Because when it got to the point about halfway through, where we knew that when we opened the door, on the other side, there's going to be one of probably 4 things. And none of them were going to jump out and bite us in the face, really. Except for the one occasion where I opened the door and there was a creeper right in my face. But that was not designed by the game. That was pure accident. Oh, and also... don't put creepers in there. Like, find a way to not put creepers, because the map got destroyed. That is bad. I forgot to mention that before. But as the traps were obvious, and really, they should have implemented pressure plates, lava fountains or something, just like water falling on your head. Something to surprise me. I want to jump out of my pants. Don't take that the wrong way. I want to be surprised. Really, I do. And this just didn't do it for me. So I'm going to have to give that another -2. For the lack of resources, I'm torn on this one, really, because for the size of the map that it was, we needed resources. But if the map had been just a little bit smaller, maybe like 3/4 of what it is, I think someone could have gotten through without needing resources, without needing the food, at least. And if you toned down the mobs a little bit, it would have been easier to, go through without armor or weapons.
Yeah.
But then this really, I just kind of look at as something that the maker just kind of forgot, I guess. It was a lack of foresight. he didn't realize that the size of the map would affect how that worked. So I'm going to give that a -1. The spawn bug was ginormous. That was just disgusting. It was horrible, and I would not blame anyone from just walking away from the map after experiencing that. And if you can't even get people to start playing your map, then you have a problem. A, a big problem. So that gets another -2. And the hardcore mode, some people out there like that way. Some people actually play that way. But most people don't want to. So you shouldn't have made it a rule that you had to follow. But the good news is that that rule was not enforced. You could change that very easily within your own options. So, again, probably a lack of foresight, but in this time in our advantage, I'm going to give that another -1. And then, with that said, we have a -2, -2, -1, -2, -1, and we end up at a 2 out of 10.
Okay, that's pretty harsh.
Well, I restrained myself, okay?
Okay.
The faults in this map are relatively large, I'm sorry. Anyway, continue.
Alright, so I think what we're at, where our reviews are worlds apart, which doesn't really surprise me. um, you know, to be fair, we have to average these scores out. So you figure 8 out of 10? That makes the map sound pretty good. But because I only went over the positive points, not 100% accurate. 2 out of 10, I think that undercredits the map. Yeah. So, in all fairness, what we are going to do for our overall review, the official Sweater Dragon Industries review, per se, is we're going to take the number right smack in the middle of those two numbers, and that will be our map review. So, what do you think? 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10. And really, that looking at it from a non-critical, which is very hard. This is very hard for me, so don't get used to it. Looking at it from a non-critical point of view and trying to embrace your view a little bit, that really is a fair assessment. You managed. The map had lots of flaws, but it made up for them in several different ways that were ingenious. And personally, some of them, I don't know how he did it with the whole emotional thing. I don't know why I felt that way, but it was just, I guess it was just the sheer monotony of the rooms that drove me mad. But really, they really do equal each other out.
Absolutely. You know, and the same could be said on my behalf. You know, I saw the positives in the map, but at the same time, the flaws in the map are very difficult to ignore. So I think we can definitely agree to meet in the middle there. I think we can both agree on a fair score of 5 out of 10. It has its fair share of great successes, but those great successes are going to only be seen by a patient player who can overlook the glaring flaws.
Mm-hmm.
So
now, do we suggest the map? Sure. If you got a friend, if you got more than one friend, it's even better. You know,
absolutely.
if you got just like little 3 or 4 people and you just want to have a little fun, by all means go at it. It was genuinely, it was fun. I enjoyed myself when I played this map.
Yeah.
Not as much as I wish I thought I could have if other things had been fixed.
Yep.
But I did enjoy myself. And that being said, to both the creator and to other map makers out there, this map, this idea, has a lot of potential.
Agreed.
And if you were to correct it, if you were to make it better, and there's so many ways you can make. For one thing, if you made a 3D, just a little shot in the dark there, that'd be awesome. I mean, 3D and not 2D, that'd be awesome. Anyway, but this is a lot of potential. There's a lot of room for reform here. And
Absolutely.
if you think that's you, by all means, if creator, if you're watching, if you make a better version, I would jump on the bandwagon to play that.
Yeah.
Immediately.
And one thing that I think is worth saying is, if you guys take our suggestion and do decide to play the map, a couple of heads up. I wouldn't recommend hardcore mode. We personally didn't try it because honestly, we were at first we were just doing it for the sake of recording. But as we started to play the map, we began to realize that realistically, it's just not a good game mode for the map.
It isn't.
Number 2, do yourself the favor and spawn in a little bit of food at the beginning of the map. Maybe not quite as much as me and Sweaterman here did. We spawned in a full stack of beef. That's not necessary whatsoever. I would say, you know, based on how much of a challenge you guys want to, give yourselves. But definitely spawning in food, especially if you're wandering around blindly, I would say is a must.
Mm-hmm.
And number 3, as far as the whole spawn glitch, I'm 99% sure that you guys will spawn on the very top of the map, break a piece of bedrock, and go straight for the middle room that looks like it has a small tower coming out of it. That is the actual intended spawn location. Don't spoil the map for yourselves and go looking for the exit, or even wander around looking for the intended spawn area. We will tell you right now, it is dead smack in the middle. It has a small tower coming out of it, from what it looks like. And even though it wasn't obvious at first, once we did find it, that tower is a small giveaway, but we want to give you guys the heads up just so you guys know for sure.
Right.
If you follow those, I guarantee it will increase the experience a little bit, and it will be a more enjoyable map. It's not perfect, but it does have its fair share of positives.
Alright.
Alright, so let's see here. Alright, so I think we got everything just about covered.
I think we did.
Alright, and what we will do is, in the video description below, we will include the name of the map. We have to give credit to, of course, the person that created the map, so we will include their name, and we will also include a link to the map.
We would say his name right now, but I think we forgot. No offense.
Absolutely.
I think it was like the mode 237 or something. I don't really remember. I didn't pay much attention.
I didn't either. I was just I was more too curious about the map to pay much attention. No offense, but we will give credit where credit is due.
And we will include a link to the download.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to go searching for it.
Yep. Alright, so I think that concludes our review on the map The Cube. As always, my name is Escapion.
And I'm Sweaterman.
Alright, and thanks for watching.